Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
And now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Al.
Hi, my name is Al. I'm an alcoholic. I have a special connection to this meeting. That little blonde sitting there in the black leather jacket and the black fingernails. My name's Patty. She was a newcomer. And I chased her from meeting to meeting, you know what I mean? And I used to follow her over here to Rodeo, and it was the old Rodeo place. And I've been with that newcomer for 29 years, something like that. 29, 30 years. And we've been married since 1982. We got, between the two of us, we got 3 boys and 8 grandkids. And it's a real trip, you know. So I remember Kenny asking me, he said, well, what do you think about me taking out a newcomer? Kenny, I'm a bad guy to ask that, isn't right, Ken? But besides that, am I being taped? That means I can't say fuck, huh? I like drinking. You know, I really did it for me. Just made everything livable. It made everything livable. You know, I was able to live with myself. I was able to cope with society. And couldn't work, you know. Where I got to go, and no, but you guys don't have to go there if you don't want to, but I don't care if you do. You can if you want. Where I got to go is a place called Salvation Army. You know, that's where I got sober. I went to Monrovia High School in San Gabriel Valley, and imagine of me walking up to the men's counselor and saying, what is it that I have to do that's when I'm 30 years old, I'm living at Salvation Army and going to AA meetings now. Tell me, what is it that I have to do? And he'd say, well, you're doing just fine. You know what I mean? Just keep thinking the way you're thinking, you know. That's why, you know, we're talking about the steps. Everybody thinks on step 2, they think the big word is God. Actually, God is a good word. It's a cool word. I like that. But I think the big word there is called sanity, being returned to sanity. What that means is when we come in, we're fucking crazy. And if we're crazy, that means, what crazy means is something wrong with the way we think. You know, I remember when I was sober, I got a sponsor when I was sober about 6 weeks at Salvation Army, and he moved me out of his house after I was there for, Ken, as a matter of fact, you met Shep, my sponsor. And he moved me out of Salvation Army because he knew I would become institutionalized, you know, and he moved me into his house. And he said I could stay there for 6 weeks. And Shep was such a terrible drinker. He felt he was such a terrible drinker, and that he owed penance to God. Well, he ended up being the worst type of Catholic there is. He was a converted Catholic. You know what I mean? And he owed penance to God. So what he, and I got no problem with, if you're Catholic, cool, I like that. And he said, how I pay my penance is I move somebody into a room downstairs, and they can stay there for room and board for 6 weeks. But after 6 weeks, my penance is up with them, and I have to find somebody else. So you got 6 weeks to stay here, to get yourself a job, save yourself money, and move out in 6 weeks, because you don't count for me after that, you know. And so he used to get me up in the morning, and he would sit there, and we'd talk, and he'd sit there and he'd say, he told me what the nature of the disease of alcoholism was. And I'll go slow because I'm in Westwood. See what it is? I mean, come on, you guys. Come on. You guys think your head knows what it's talking about. You listen to it. How many times you gone to a fucking meeting and you heard somebody say, I got a committee going on in my head? Well, who told you there was a committee in your head? Your head told you. And they believed it. See? So this one I'm going to go slow. See, what the nature of the disease of alcoholism is, it's an allergy to the body and an obsession of the mind. What it is, it's an allergy to the body and an obsession of the mind. I know you're new, and I hope I'm embarrassing you. What it is an allergy to the body with an obsession of the mind. And what that means is when you're not drinking and doing drugs, all you've done is handle the allergy. He said, all you've done is handle the allergy, Al. You're left with a disease, and the disease is the mind. You know, and I was starting to think, he says, and do you know what the function of the mind is? And he says, Al, says, the function of the mind is, you know how Shep talk, you know, like, the function of the mind is thinking, you know what I mean? And immediately I wondered, is this guy trying to tell me that there's something wrong with the way I think? There can't be, you know, because I've thought that way all my life. Thought that way all my life. Here, I'm sitting at his breakfast room table. I hadn't worked in the last 3 years. This is in Hawaii. The reason that I was in Hawaii is I was wanted by the California police because it was for 18 felony counts. And I deserted my wife, and my son was adopted away from me. And I was wondering, is he trying to tell me that there's something wrong with the way I think? You know, isn't that strange? That's what happened. And I also learned there that if you're going to play checkers or chess or anything like that, you got to learn the game. And life is a game also. Life is a game also. What I needed to do is you have to learn how to play the game. The game is, you take 1 and 1 and 1, you draw a line, the answer is 3. So, you know, why is it 3? Because that's the way it adds up, Al. That's the way it adds up. And he said, now, if you take the way you look at God, and you take the way you look and see yourself, and you take a look in the way you see and judge the people around, judge the world and the people around you, you draw a line there. The answer to that is, you know what that is, Alex? What is? The answer to that is Salvation Army. You know what I mean? You know. Why? Why? Because that's the way it adds up. You know. You know. So I mean, if you're sitting here and you feel that your life sucks and it's the end of the world and shit, it's really a bitch. What's going on? Everything's terrible. My answer to that is, man, that's the way it adds up. You know, that's the way it adds up. See, because Salvation Army was a state of consciousness. It was a state of consciousness. Now, if I wanted to change 2, and if I wanted to change 3 to 5, I just can't change 5 because the 1 and 1 and 1 always adds up to 3. What I have to do is change 2, 2, and 1. The answer is 5. That 5 is the state of consciousness for 2, 2, and 1. Now, if you take the way now if I wanted to change this, say if I wanted to change from living at Salvation Army to live at the Ina Kali Apartments in the corner of Ina Road and Kalakaua, across the street from the Ilokai Hotel. Now, what do I have to do to get that consciousness? What do I do to get that consciousness? You know, what I do is I investigate the way I see God. You know. And what I do is I investigate the way I see myself. So, and I'll tell you what, I did end up living on the 6th floor. In the last 6 months I lived in Hawaii before I came back to turn myself into the police department. I was living at the Inukli Apartments on the 6th floor and watching them build the Ilokai Hotel across the street. And I was so paranoid when I got sober, I couldn't talk to 2 people at the same time. One time I was talking to 2 people at the same time. I was sober around 4 weeks, and I went into a blackout. A sober blackout, yeah. But so my sponsor told me when I was living there, he told me I had to get a job. So I got a job pulling weeds. He says, "What do you hate doing?" I said, "Pulling weeds." He says, "Get a job pulling weeds." You know. So I got a job pulling weeds for $1.25 an hour. And then the guy had a factory, he had a clothing factory, and the reason I'm talking about this is because I got a lot of time to talk, and I can only talk so slow. You know, so just bullshit a little bit, all right? And so I got that job for $1.25 an hour with this guy, and he put me in the cutting room, and I worked in his cutting room, like cutting clothes. And and there was another job open for $1.75 an hour for a cutter, and I applied for it, and I got it. And the guy told me I could have it. So I went up to this guy who I was working for, and I told him, I said, you know, if you just give me $1.50, I'll stay. And he said, "You're not worth it." So I left, you know what I mean? And then I got as hard as I knew I couldn't make more than $1.75 an hour there. And so the reason I'm telling you this is because I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't talk to people. And I saw an ad in a Honolulu paper about where you can make like $400 a month. Like I've been sober for 45 years. This is 1964 rather. And so I applied at the job, and it was selling sterling silver for door to door. So imagine how you got to talk to people. You got to talk shit. I set a record with that company, man. I set a record at that company. I went on 27 demonstrations and never made one sale. You know? But you know what? I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to talk to people. And why is it? Why isn't I couldn't talk to people? Why isn't it? Because the book says our chances are nil till we get rid of our old ideas. It's that part 2. It's that part 2, and there's 1, 2, and 3. Why did I drink? You know, why did I drink? Because we all drank. Because we suffered. You know. I may do something graphic tonight to prove a point. We suffered. What causes suffering is our thinking. And step 2 says there's something wrong with the way I think. Now, what was the reason what was the old ideas that caused me to suffer? Like an old idea said, my dad told me, whatever you do, don't hang around with Mexicans. Particularly you. Don't hang around with Mexicans. The only thing wrong, my dad was a Mexican. You know what I mean? And so I saw myself as being less than because of that. Then when I was 7 years old, I was molested by my uncle. I was molested by my uncle. And I never could really tell anybody that because that never ever happened to anybody in the world. But you see what I had begun to do, I had begun to identify these events that had happened to me in my life as who I am. See? Let me give you the answer. See? You won't accept it. Yeah, you'll hear it, but it won't work for you because you won't believe it. See? You won't believe it because you'd have to give too much up to believe it. And what the answer is God, she created you good. You always were good. You are good now. And you will be good and you have nothing to do with it. You have totally nothing to do with it. Totally, we have totally nothing to do with it. See? And any idea that I'm unworthy or I'm bad or there's something wrong with me, any idea of that is is a defect of character. Now, what a defect, you can always tell a defect of character. What it does, it allows my life not to work. Allows my life not to work. In other words, I'm operating underneath a lie. And the lie was, and here's what the reason I gave you the answer first is because I'm saying that who I am and what I am is an extension of God. Just like you guys, you're all little gods. Nobody likes to hear that. Oh, you're saying you're God? Yes, I am. It's cool. And why I'm not nuts is I'm not saying I'm the only God. You know what I mean? I'm saying I'm a God just like the rest of you guys. See? And the cool thing about being that is, did I pick my nose or am I a nose picker? Did I scratch my ass or am I an ass scratcher? Did I knock on the podium or am I a podium knocker? No. Before I had done that work, before I had come to that point of view, before I had experienced that, I would identify myself to you as Al, the nose-picking, ass-scratching podium knocker. I would say that was me. But what happens is that through the steps, you realize that who I am, just like the rest of you guys, man. Like even Kenny. And worse yet, even Neil. You know what I mean? Even Neil's an extension of God. That's how far it goes. Okay. And so what happens here I am an extension of God. I walked over here and I picked my nose. I walked over here and I scratched my ass. I walked over here and I knocked at the podium. At what time did I become any of those things? I never become any of those things because who I am and what I am is an extension of God, and these are just things that I did. See, what the inventory does when we take our inventory is we break our identification with the things we've done in our life. We no longer say, this is me, but I can't break my identification if I don't see it. You understand? If I think this cup is here, and I want to move it, and that cup's creating problems in my life, and I don't know what to do, what do I do about the cup? What can I do about it? Well, the first thing you got to do is look at it. You understand? You got to look at it. And after I look at it, I can take whatever moves I make. That's what the inventory does. I don't say I'm the fucking cup. You know? I don't sound I'm the cup. You know, I just look at it. Oh, it's a cup. Mommy is son of a bitch. God damn. It's a cup. You know? And that's the same thing. Oh, wow, man, I was molested. That asshole. Rotten. You know, I remember Shep telling me, so you want to be forgiven? And we had a big discussion. He's big on this, on forgiveness, right? He said, do you want to be forgiven? And yeah. He said, well, if you want to be forgiven, what you do is a little bit, you forget a few people. If you want to be forgiven halfway, forgive halfway people. If you want to have the experience of being forgiven totally and have total freedom, what you have to do is you have to forgive everybody. Well, I did, man. I forgive everybody except a couple of fucking people. You know what I mean? A couple of people, I just ain't going to do it, you know. And those two people held me prisoner, you know. It wasn't until I did whatever I had to do to release, to experience me forgiving these people, you know, because these people don't care whether I forgive them. You understand that? They don't care. They don't care. Now, what is this all? I hate to do this, but I think I got to make a point. There's such a thing known as cause and condition. Cause and condition. Son of a bitch. I got a wet head. I got a wet head. And that wet head, you know what the wet head is? It's a condition. It's a condition. And what's the cause? Exactly. I poured water on my head. That's the cause.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
That's the cause. What happens if I feel like nobody loves me? And I feel less than? That's a condition. What's the cause? Okay, well, scientifically you say, well, you have low self-esteem, right? Well, low self-esteem is a condition. It's a condition. What's the cause? The cause is what am I thinking about me that causes me to think that? You understand? Say if I react to somebody around me that causes me to feel less than, creates the condition of me feeling less than. What is the cause? The cause isn't the other person. The cause is what am I thinking? What thoughts am I thinking that creates that condition? See? And what you do and how you handle them thoughts is, do I do that? Oh, son of a, am I thinking that? I mean, my dad said I wasn't worth a shit because being Mexican? Come on. You know, if God didn't want me to be Mexican, Irish, he wouldn't have created. I try to not let anybody know I'm Irish. I'm really ashamed of that. But if she didn't want me to be Mexican Irish, she wouldn't have made me that. You know what I mean? So if everybody wants to know, what is God's purpose? I ask myself, what is God's purpose? What is God's purpose? God's purpose for me is to do me. You understand? And I can't do me if I'm operating under a false identity. And a false identity is me thinking I am someone else. You know, me thinking that I got to be, like take a look. The reason I had to be cool, I mean, what's happening there? They were doing that, and the reason they probably said that is that he really did know what was happening, you know, that was happening. But the reason, you know, the reason you gotta be cool, is because you can't be who you are. You can't be who you are. You know, I mean, I went into what do you call it, County Al, and I went into the prison down in, where's that place down in that boys' prison down there, that where we went all the time? Well, there's a prison down there. And they had a bunch of guys in there, and they would come in there for a meeting, and they all looked the same. They all, I mean, not they were all wearing the same clothes, because they were different clothes, but it all looked the same. So what happens is that what we get to do is we get to be who we are, but to get to be who, that's, see, the real freedom is, the real freedom is that we get to be who we are. And the reason we drank, I had to realize the reason I drank is because to drink was a relief. You know, what was a relief? It was a relief from the pain of that I was suffering, the pain of what I thought about myself. That's why the steps are there. I mean, I can give you all sorts of stories that happened to me, like when I was drinking, like, you know, my roommate was $36 a month. I couldn't make my rent in Hawaii. So I took in a roommate. You know, I subleased part of my room. He didn't have a job. We got kicked out. There was a place called Samoan Village. We moved over to the next village called Filipino Village. And I lived in a burned-out car there for 3 days, and then from there I went and was babysitting for 2 bottles of wine a day and a pack of Cools, you know. And you know, I got to how I found out I couldn't drink and do drugs is I drank and did drugs. You know, that's how I found it out, and that's how we all find it out. And but see, the real trip is, are we going to get to be who we are? You know, do we have that? It takes balls. It takes courage to be who you are, because we have to let go of all, I had to let go of all my previous belief systems, not judge them. When I found out, you know, I had a spiritual awakening when I found out God wasn't a Catholic. You know, how did I find that out? I found that out on AA meetings. Because how many people are sober in this room and are not Catholic? Raise your hand. Okay, now if God was a Catholic, these arms wouldn't be up. You understand? Because only Catholics would be sober. See? So God isn't, what I had to do is, and getting sober in the 60s was great because they had a big spiritual revolution. You know, I was sober 10 years and I did and I ended up going down the road sideways. You know, I was totally caught up in drama. And you know how you can spot drama? It's very easy. It's not happening, you know? It's not happening. I was, you know, I went and talked to this Zen monk, and he said I had one of the most grossest minds I'd ever run into. And I got a garden variety alcoholic mind based upon what isn't happening. I went to see Butch Cassidy. I went to see The Alien with Bobby Hargraves, a friend of mine, Bobby. And I come out of the theater, you know, it freaks me out. That thing came out of that guy's chest. Did you ever remember that? Son of a bitch, it went through the top of the roof, you know. And I come out, and I told Bobby, I said, boy, that was something. He says, yeah. He says, you know, he says, that was a spooky movie. You know, and I said, oh, that's right. And you know what? You know, when I was meditating, what happens is I realized that who I am, and I'm right here. In case you're curious, you ever want to know where you're at, check your underwear. Don't ask your head. You're in there. You'll always be there. There'll be nowhere else. You know, you're right here right now, and here you're back again. You know, here you are back again. See, you're back again. And you notice every time you came back, you're okay right now, right? How about now? You're okay. You're okay right now. Like, see if you can get in here. If I can just get right in there. Son of a bitch. If I could just get right in there, right. If I can because the reason I want to be there is there's nowhere else. There is nowhere else. Everywhere else is imagination. Anything outside where I'm at right now is imagination. Now, why was I afraid? Why did I go through so many years of sobriety in fear? When actually the truth is, how you all right? You're cool. You're all right now, right? You're all right again right now, right? Why did I? Because when I was busy being all right, I thought thoughts that scare me. That's why you get afraid, is you think thoughts that scare you. You run spooky movies and scare the shit out of yourself. You know what I mean? While you're busy being okay. You know, like I'm sitting here, okay, I'd sit here and, oh, God, yeah, I see everybody saying how bad everything is, and how everybody is how terrible it is, the economy's terrible. Shit, I could lose my job. I could end up living underneath the boardwalk, underneath the pier in Venice. I wouldn't have friends anymore. I'd push around a market ban. Pat would leave with the dog. God, what the fuck's going to happen to me? And boy, I really feel bad. I better call up somebody and talk to him about it. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Our head doesn't know what it's talking about. It doesn't know. I mean, I get up in the morning, there's a buzzer there. It goes like this. Oh, I'm glad you're up. There's a few things I'd like to discuss with you. Yeah. It doesn't know what it's. You understand? You got to understand your mind. He gets a paycheck from God to do a job. But it only has so much work to do, you know. It's like a guy at the post office, like he's got to work 8 hours. And so he's only got 3 hours worth of work, so he works 3 hours and he invents work for the next 7. What is it, 5, right? See? Yeah, I was checking to see if you're listening, you passed. So the next hour, you understand, your head ain't got shit to do, so it ain't got a problem to solve, it'll create a problem. You know all those problems you can't solve? The reason's because they're not problems, they're inventions. They're inventions, because here I am right here, right now again. You know, right here, I'm fine, just right now. And, oh shit, I got 6 more minutes. No, I did this one time at Rodeo, and we meditated for a few minutes, but I won't do that to you. But what I'm just, I think this isn't a normal AA talk. This is probably why they don't ask me to talk at conventions, you know what I mean? Because I'm really interested in removing, in people finding peace and happiness. I want to see, now, I want peace and happiness in my life. I want to create the condition called peace and happiness. And for me to create the condition for peace of happiness, what I have to do is observe the causes that are creating the condition called unhappiness. And then observe the causes that create peace and happiness. A good cause for me to remember is that the dice of God is loaded. God cheats. There's no way I can lose. All I got to do is give up. And how do I give up? I hang in the minute. What do I have to do to grow spiritually? What do I have to do to really, it isn't a matter of growing spiritually. What do I have to do to where I can return to myself? What do I have to do where I can come back home? I remember I saw this picture called Cafe Paradiso. And the part where the guy, oh, I can almost cry when I hear it, where the guy dies at the end of the movie. And he was running. And as he ran, he became like a little child. And his mother was standing there at the door. They held him. And that's us. We're coming home. And how we do that is just have the discipline to stay here, to stay now. If it's not happening now, it's not happening. And and try meditating. You know what I mean? Try meditating. I know it's hard. Just do it for 2 minutes. I did a meditation for workshop for about 4 or 5 months. I did it in Venice at the recovery center there, and there were people that never meditated before. But when they left there, they had meditated for almost an hour and 10 minutes, and they blew through it. You know, so. I just want to, Laura, I want to thank you for asking me to talk. And, you know, if you just hang out in your underwear, stay here now, know that you're fine. You know, that you're good, you're fine, and you're always going to be okay, you're always going to be cool. You're going to be fine. Okay, thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.